Welcome to the SaaS AdLab podcast. We're going through the stories of SaaS founders, entrepreneurs, and CEOs. My name is Luis. I'm the founder of Fantôm agency, a digital marketing agency specializing in scaling SaaS companies. And today I have the pleasure of interviewing Sammy. He is the founder and CEO over at Speak2Leads. First of all, thank you so much for taking this call. I know, people are busy. There's a lot of things going on every single day for entrepreneurs like yourself. So I appreciate your time to take out of your day and do this with me. So first of all, why don't you just, tell us a little bit more about your background, what it is that you've done in the past, and what kind of led you to actually building and creating the product Speak2Leads.
Okay. Well, we don't have time to get into all of it because I'm very old, unlike most of your probably your typical SaaS CEOs these days who are in their 30s or 40s. And I'm twice that old. So I've been around for a long time. So I started out, back literally when I was selling computers, they didn't know what they were. Okay. Mm-hmm. People were like, what is that? That's how old I am. So I've always been in media and in somehow media, marketing, and technology. Of those three pillars are the three common threads that run through my entire career.
Right.
I started out as a DJ, right? But, eventually, evolved. So I guess, what my part of my background that had an influence on where I am today is that back in the day, there was this thing called database. It was a new thing called database marketing. And there was a book called The Great Marketing Turnaround. I think it was in the 80s. And that was huge when you could actually use databases to do marketing. Mm-hmm. So we did that, mashed up databases with media. In fact, in Los Angeles at a station, it was the number one talk station at the time, KABC. And they were the number one billing station in America. And so what we did is we figured out that in order to influence the ratings, we could identify who the heavy users were, because back at, how you want to segment who your heavy, medium, and light users. And then, if you can retain your heavy users and then convert your medium users to a little bit more usage, you win. It was so simple, as opposed to trying to go out and get more cum or new customers. It's the same thing today as retention versus acquisition.
Multiplying business, essentially, right? Like you're going to get more faster if you start increasing prices instead of going on and finding new customers.
Or getting to use the product more.
Okay? Exactly.
Like if I don't drink, say soft drinks like Coke or Pepsi, they can spend all the money they want on marketing. I'm not gonna start drinking it because of their cute commercials or whatever. But the people who do drink it may drink more, right? Mm-hmm. And be more loyal to the product. So we used a telephony. We used a telephone to actually tell people to call into a number and tell us who they are and tell, that loyal listeners join our club. It was like basically the American Airlines started this whole thing with the frequent flyer program. They were the first. And then they eventually made more money on the frequent flyer program, on marketing and sales and sponsorships of that program than they did, with their airplane rides from point A to point B, which is amazing, right? And so we basically modeled after the frequent flyer program and we did it for radio. And then, long story short, as my career evolved, then I ended up, I spent most of my life in San Francisco. So back in the late 90s, things started to really percolate in terms of the internet and then, venture capital and all that. And so I found myself, getting involved in various startups and as like the first hire, because I happen to have, just by virtue of, I guess, necessity, I developed this certain muscle, which is the ability to take things that are unproven with no historical data and figure out a way to monetize them. Uh-huh. Okay. And so I was always the guy they hired to do that. And they, the title back then was, VP of Business Development. So it's always been I've always found myself in these backward situations where, people say, hey, you've got to figure out how to make money with this, Yeah. And I've always somehow been able to figure out how to do it. And I think it's just because I'm scrappy, I guess, as well. I don't know. And I have the ability to think of abstract things that don't exist physically in the physical world and put them together in my head. Mm-hmm. And then I have enough practicality or concreteness in my mind to be able to test them against the reality.
Right.
So abstract and concrete, is a good combination, and I guess I have enough of that to be able to be successful enough at it. So one of the hires, one of the companies that was a VC-backed company back in the late 90s was a company called Buzz Hits. And essentially Buzz Hits would be what Shazam is today.
Okay.
So this is pre-smartphones. Okay. This is just, all you could do is dial a number. That was it on that phone, right? On that brick. And so what we did was, given I have a radio background, I arranged for licensing to be able to monitor all of the music played in the top 16 markets, or in America, I guess, to start, or 20 markets and top 10 stations in each market. And then essentially we were people could call in to 1-800-777-BUZZ, and it's like, hey, Buzz Hits, please enter the number of the station you're listening to now, so 1045. Okay, 104.5 KFOG, in San Francisco, because we knew based on where geographically they were calling from, we knew which station,
Right.
To serve up, because it's stations all have, they share the same frequency in different locations. Anyway, a long story short is that we were too early. I mean, because Shazam is awesome, and we were doing Shazam, so you could hear what song was playing on the radio instantly. We would do a snippet and say, "Is that the song you're looking for?" Yeah, and then we did all kinds of stuff with it. And so from there, that evolved into doing music research. We did music research for the labels to find out what music was getting buzz, ironically, and then we also, I took it into advertising, so that you could basically extend the message. You could take a 10-second radio billboard, or traffic sponsorship, or even a physical billboard, on the street. And by having a 1-800 number and a keyword, you could call in and then get more information and be connected to, follow through on the sale. So I love that stuff. I'm always kind of bored with today, always looking at what's next.
Yeah.
And so it was fun, and because I like things that work. I mean, I'm a big believer. My philosophy is the truth equals what works. And so I love to, when something works, I get really excited,
Uh-huh.
So that led to, I ended up moving to San Diego because I sold the loyalty program. I got back into that after, the VCs pulled out at the wrong time. Too bad, because we had a lot of traction. We were doing really well, but I was super nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up going back into, the loyalty program for television this time. And then I sold it to a guy who moved to San Diego and run a station down there. So that's how I ended up in San Diego. And San Diego is super nice. It's not San Francisco by any stretch of the imagination in terms of its look and feel, but hey man, who can argue with the beach and all that nice weather?
Totally.
So it's a different vibe, but once you surf a little bit, you get it. You're good.
Yeah.
So then I was, after that, I had been in the advertising business, and I had my own agency, at different points in my life. And so I just decided to start another agency, and that's because that's what I knew how to do. It was traditional and digital, because back then that was 15 years ago, at least. And that was still kind of the cusp, between traditional and digital. Digital was still coming on. And just shortly after Google, came on, and people started using Google to search, and then, forums became a thing for people to use to inquire. I had clients that were a lot of my clients were in the private post-secondary education marketplace, which is to say trade schools or career schools, okay, for-profit schools, and they're spending about $40 a lead, probably cost them around $1,500 to $2,000 per student to get a student enrolled. They, it's a pretty big budget and pretty big investment for them to have a viable, business. And what they were finding is that all of a sudden their leads, instead of coming from direct response TV, which is where most of them were coming from, started coming more from aggregators and, people that were, doing a better job than they were at SEM and, that kind of thing, and just internet marketing. And then their own website. And so the balance shifted away from people calling in from direct response, TV and radio and print, into these forums. And the sales team, they call them admissions. It's a euphemism for sales. But the sales team, they didn't like this because, picking up the phone and calling somebody was a weird thing for them to do.
Yeah.
And so frankly, some of my clients were literally telling me they would find the leads in the trash. And the way they were distributing those leads is they would come into the director of admissions, they would print them out, and they would hand them to the person on the desk, and okay, you call this one, you call this one,
Right.
So I'm like, this is crazy. I said, people that are online, man, they're inquiring, you got to be super fast. You got to get back to them immediately because they're searching 3 or 4 different schools. They're anyway, before any of the research was available, and this is about the time that MIT, study with, Sloan Business School and all that came out, right? It was the first study done on lead response, right? Mm-hmm. And they only took it down to 5 minutes, which is like 5 minutes is too late. Okay. But I mean, because they thought 5 minutes was fast, and it's not. But anyway, so I said, well, wait a minute, let me think here. Why don't we just turn the form into a phone call, and then who cares? I mean, the sales reps don't care about, if they just get a call and it says, hey, you got a lead, press, 1 or 2 or whatever to call them. Here's their name and here's the program of interest. Why wouldn't that work? So I developed that. And it's, to my knowledge, I'm the first person in the world to do that. Not a big deal. I mean, to do something like that at the time, I mean, it's just putting, a little bit of code together and, on
right.
top of voice API. Blah, blah, blah. Things have gotten easier now with things like Twilio and all that. But back then, I did, like I said, I'm scrappy, so I got it done. And it worked, man. Wow. All of a sudden, I mean, it was like a 300% increase. It just blew their minds. And I'm like, man, this is incredible. What should I charge for this? Because there was nobody else was doing this. Yeah. And so I just made up a price based on value. And then I was running my agency. So I had a lot of different services I was providing and digital and traditional, this and that. And then I saw this get more and more traction and have more and more of an impact. So eventually I just said, this deserves focus. This should be its own business. Yeah. Because everybody was complaining back then about better quality leads, more leads, better quality, more leads, more qualified leads, more leads. That was all everyone was talking about. And no one was talking about, well, what are the sales teams or the admissions teams actually doing with the leads that they get? Right. What's happening? And it's amazing. Even today, it hasn't changed much, really. There's a lot of faith, blind faith, in what salespeople do with the leads they get. By their, I don't know, by the business, by the company, and salespeople have always been clever at gaming the system. CRMs, for example. I mean, you could probably take any random CRM in America, and I bet you half of the leads in that CRM are fake, and they got there from the salespeople. Yeah. Because they got to meet their quotas, they got to make sure they make X number of calls, they got to do that. I don't know. It's it's always been a game. It's become. CRM was supposed to be something that was supposed to be helpful, but then became more of an administrative nightmare for the sales guys. Yeah. They hate it, and I hated them too. You got to have X amount of calls. You got to do this. You got to have notes. You spend 70% of your time on admin, and what salespeople love doing is speaking to leads. Mm-hmm. So I, for both those reasons, I've been very passionate about it and enabling them to do just that. And remove the busy work. And but more importantly, fundamentally, the problem we solved and the problem we're still solving today is that it's an attention span economy, or whatever the expression is. So no one has attention. The salespeople have no attention span, and neither do their clients. So as I tell people, I said, look, man, if skywriting, worked, I would be doing skywriting, but the reason this works, and I kind of because it was an experiment. Now, I wasn't like I'm a genius and I think I knew this would work. I didn't.
Yeah.
So I've spent time just wondering, why does this work so well? And and the speed being, the number one driver of conversion. And it works because there is something visceral about a phone call. And so first thing, job one is get the attention of the salesperson. Because like, hey man, you got a CRM and a lead pops up on let's say on the screen, and then now you have to respond to it. Or you get a text message, hey, you got a lead, or you get an email, you got a lead. Guess what? There's no real sense of urgency about that. And the salespeople, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, right? Mm-hmm. And so what I found is, which is crazy, is that when you call a salesperson, they can't resist answering that phone. It's just like, they love it. It's like if you were to send a direct mail piece to someone, just an envelope, and you had 10 envelopes and then one box, on the desk. Here's your mails, and then which one are you going to open first, man? It's just, right? We're just human. Mm-hmm. So we're going to always answer the phone first over anything else. And so that, number one, that's the secret, I think, because you get the salesperson's attention first, because you got to get them to act. Number two, make it super easy. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to think. They don't have to know anything. It's just like, hey, you have a new lead. Here's their name, Charlie Parker. They're interested in, life insurance, whatever it is. Press 2 to call them now. Press 2. Hey, Charlie, I see you're interested in life insurance. What's going on? Off and running. And now they're doing what they love to do, talk to prospects.
Cool.
So, yeah. And again, there's more to it, but that, because we know that now the attention of the second attention, of course, is the consumer. Their attention is super short too, because they're human too, just like the sales reps. So capturing, within under a minute, it's kind of I use that as the kind of the magic, the golden window, magic window, whatever you want to call it. And maybe it's 40 seconds, maybe it's a minute. I don't know what it is, but it's faster the better. So what we know that when they're filling out a form, they hit submit, and literally 30 or 40 seconds goes by and their phone rings, and it's like the business they just inquired about. They are blown away by that.
Right.
In 10 years, we were having this conversation.
That you're looking for. Because me as somebody that inquires, I'm getting the attention that I expected, right? Because it was so fast.
I don't think they do expect it, frankly. Mm-hmm. I don't think they expect it. I think maybe somewhere in their mind, they think they should get it, but they don't expect it. Mm-hmm. And when they get it, they're actually surprised. Yeah. But more than surprised, they are delighted. Mm-hmm. So wait a minute. All you had to do is call someone, and now you have a delighted prospect. You went from suspicious and not trustworthy, cautious prospect to delighted. Right. And now when people buy on emotion, justified with reason, right? 100%. So emotionally, you have got them like warm clay in your hands, and it's yours to lose. Okay, right. Unless you're a bozo. I mean, you have a terrible product. I mean, you shouldn't get the business. But assuming you're a good listener, you're concerned about satisfying their requirements and their needs and helping them, and you're providing with the information they need to make a logical, rational, decision that is favorable and all that sort of good stuff, and you're authentic and everything else, all the things that good salespeople need to be, then you should get the business and you have a good product at a reasonable price. So this blew my mind. That out of the millions, we've been doing this almost 10 years in January, right? Mm-hmm. So out of the millions of calls we've made, to salespeople and that they've made to their clients, not one person has complained that it was too fast.
Yeah.
They all are like, you're amazing. And I'm like, I can't believe this. It's like that people think this is amazing. I think like you, I expect it, right? It's like, are you kidding? This should be the standard. And someday it will be, And anyway, but now I'm just satisfying the need as it exists. Mm-hmm. And I thought, honestly, 10 years ago, when I kind of panicked, because I was already I really started it 13 years ago. So I was like 3 years into it. And I'm kind of panicked because I'm thinking, man, somebody with money is going to come in here and just crush me, because this is such a great idea. It works so well. Right. And so I immediately went into panic mode, and I found the smartest guy I knew from San Francisco that, was our CTO at Buzzheads. And I asked him to come in and do an analysis of every voice product on the market. Twilio was a brand new company then. They were a startup that year. And I was reading all the Gartner stuff, and there was this and there was that, and he, recommended staying away from Twilio because they were a startup, too risky. And they're still around. I don't think they've made, or they're making a profit, but they're still around and doing a lot of cool stuff. But anyway, I then built this on an agile platform to be world class, and we have been continuing to develop over the last 10 years, and now we're like almost 1,500 features deep into this thing.
Right.
And those features are mainly features that enable us to conform and adapt to the pre-existing environment, technology environment or process or operational environment, whatever it happens to be, of all the businesses that we deal with. So that's kind of the history, and that's kind of a bit about what, has driven me and the company, forward.
That's awesome. That's great. Now to talk a little bit more about the actual growth of the company, right? About 13 years in, 3 years, you got kind of scared about, somebody bigger with more money coming in and kind of taking over. What was the kind of thing that both set you apart, and also what were the marketing strategies that were implemented in order to actually see that growth?
Well, honestly, we really haven't had a lot of growth. I mean, the growth I think we should have had by now, but for two reasons. I think, again, I have to sit back and go, what happened? And evaluate what, so it's interesting. I've spent a lot of time wondering, but okay. So first thing, we were doing really well. I mean, and it was just me and my, kind of someone I hired to be an assistant, and she kind of took care of the billing. It was a real small company, just two of us. And then I think we hired, I think a couple of salespeople, and, like that. So we were very small, and I was like, I really want to grow this. And I was just maybe a couple of years in, or, like yeah, before we announced it was Speak2Leads. Yeah, it was a couple of years, 2 or 3 years in. And so I ended up, the guys that I used to work with, in fact, the guy that fired me, because I was the first hire, and I was the first guy to get fired at the venture capital, backed company startup, because I was the highest paid guy, and they always fire the highest paid guy first, right? So the guy that fired me actually, who was the president, he called me and said, "Man, I hear that you're doing some cool, so I want to check it out." Blah, blah, blah. So all these guys kind of jumped in and said, "Hey, I got it. We'll have this guy do this guy do," because I'm thinking, I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the room, so I want to surround myself with super smart people, and because I want to do the right thing and grow this. This is a really cool, idea, and it really helps people, and makes a big difference in their business. And to me, I don't like selling, convincing. I like more like just providing people something useful,
Totally.
and it has a lot of value, and that you determine that it has value. I don't tell you it does. You learn on your own, and you buy into the value. That's how I like to do it. Old school selling, which I used to do, cold calls, selling, yellow pages, if people know what those are. So I know what sales is, but I prefer letting people buy based on, the information they have at hand that makes sense to them. So anyway, I brought in these guys, and then they put in a little bit of money, and then I basically took the money they put in, used it to pay them in salary plus equity. It was a convertible loan, and then options basically. And honestly, nothing happened. I mean, the tech guy who was a tech guy, kind of a marketing guy, and an operations guy. The operations guy, man, he was super nice, super smart. He started like Apple in Japan, back in the day. I mean, this guy knew his stuff, right? I mean, he opened up that market for, Asia for Apple back in whenever that was. And he knew, and it's like, but come on, that's ridiculous. I don't need a guy with that kind of sophisticated knowledge for a little startup. It's kind of like overbuying, at the stage we were at. Loved the guy. He had beautiful penmanship and all that, but man. Anyway, then the guy who was supposed to be the biz dev guy, who was going to make it rain, no, he wasn't. It didn't make it. Didn't happen. So I was disappointed, to say the least. I'm like, oh, now I've got all this debt now that I didn't have. I was just super profitable before, and now I got this, and this didn't happen, and it really dragged. It was like throwing an anchor, out while your boat is trying to go into the, catch some wind, and it was tough. So I don't think that helped. And because I was always saying, we've got to spend more on market. We've got to spend more on market, and I was always getting pushed back because I didn't have the ultimate decision.
And that was, I mean, as a marketer, you knew that was, important to grow a business. You've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
If there's no marketing going around, there's no advertising, no anything.
Nothing.
Obscurity.
Because you know what? And this is still true today, which is this. We're not even talking, crossing the chasm. We're talking about, we haven't even got to the chasm. The early adopters, the earlier than early, they're getting there before it's open adopters.
Right.
Those are the people that we basically attract.
Mm-hmm.
Because who's looking for lead response management tools? Because no one even knows what that is, or
right.
what the concept is. No one's searching. If you go and look across anywhere, no one's searching for this, and so they don't know the technology or the solution exists, so they don't notice it. It's like, and I think about it, I go, what about the guy that invented the CRM? Okay, he was the first, and customer relationship management box or whatever it was. Who was searching for that? He must have gone through the same struggle, right? So things evolve over time. It's only been 10, 13 years, so it's still early maybe in the scheme of things. For me, it's been like a million years, because remember, I'm bored with today, I'm excited about tomorrow. And so for me to be this persistent and stick to it like this, first time in my life. Now, the only thing that's keeping me in this is that it works, and I'm still excited every day when I hear from clients about their stories and how incredible this is for them, and that's what keeps me completely fired up. If I didn't have, if not for that, I'd be bored out of my mind.
Right. So what are how many current clients do you have right now using Speak2Leads? And the other question is, how big are they essentially? What kind of maturity does a company have to be in to realize that that's an issue with their lead management?
Honestly, we have clients that have, 10 leads a month, but those leads are worth, 40, 50 grand to them if they close, right? So they're precious. So they don't want to miss any opportunity. They want to optimize every chance. So a few of those. Then we have clients that are 100 leads a month, 200 leads a month, that kind of thing. I think 300 is kind of like when you really got to get serious. I think people tend to get, we seem to attract, because people find us organically. We just started doing marketing like a month and a half, 2 months ago. Okay. So I'll let you know. We'll talk again down the road. I'll let you know how it's going. But what we seem to attract vis-a-vis Google is people that are, probably doing, 10 to 20 leads a day kind of thing. And they're a small team, 3 to 5 people. But then again, we also attract very large clients. Right. We attract clients that do, 4,000 or 5,000 leads a month. I was actually invited to do a pitch to a retail chain with 3,500 stores, and wow. Man, they're doing, I don't know, I can't even remember the number, but it was huge, like 80,000 leads a month or something like that across all their stores. Right. And which is so we have some very large clients. To answer your question, how many? And they range from, like I say, like the 100 lead a month guys up to the probably 10,000 lead a month guys. And we probably have maybe 100 clients, and some of those are direct and some are through resellers, and we're also international, so we have some international clients, and that's growing. And in fact, we're talking to one of the largest companies in the world right now, that is going to go across 13 countries. They're doing a pilot in Serbia, of all places, and then if it works, they'll be across 13 countries.
Interesting.
And yeah. So it's going to be, and they're like 40,000 leads a month if it gets fully baked. So there are opportunities with large retailers or companies. And we haven't been, this will make the competition, feel good, but we really haven't done an adequate job of selling or marketing the company.
Mm-hmm.
And we've really, to my fault, being an entrepreneur, your strength is your weakness, of course. And one of the things that I'm really good at is coming up with product ideas. So I tend to spend a lot of time doing that. I've got so many ideas right now in the pipeline. Wow. I mean, cool stuff, right? I can't wait to do. And what drives, I think, the differentiator from what we do and anybody else who's, I can do that here. Let me just, get a Twilio account and I'll start, 3 lines of code. Is honestly, we come at this. My background is all sales and marketing. Okay. That's my whole life. And so what drives every decision we make is, will this improve sales? Will this increase sales, for our clients? And will it, for whatever reason, there's a lot of reasons why. Maybe it makes them more productive. Maybe there's a lot of reasons. And so the reporting, for example, one of the biggest market opportunities there is for agencies like yours. I mean, I don't know, you probably do some lead gen, right?
Totally. Yeah.
For your client. Okay. Now, do you know what your clients are doing with those leads that they get? Right. And you're just going, how is it going? Right. And they're like, clients are like, it's amazing. Other clients are like, not that well. And you're like, that's weird. I mean, why is this guy doing so well and this guy's not? It's probably because of how they're managing.
Totally. It usually comes down to whatever they're doing with those leads. So like, you're like, if you have a client and you're sending them 300 leads a month, but they're doing a poor job at actually doing anything with them, the one that's doing 10 leads a month and is actually managing those properly and contacting them whenever they need to be contacted and so on, and they're going to be doing much better. So 100%.
Yeah, it's like back in the school business, one of the things that it was always true. You could take 2 schools, like sister schools. One was in one city, one was, or one part of town, one was in the other. One had double the leads the other one did. The school with the least amount of leads always had a higher conversions, right? Because they were more important to them, right? They worked them more. All right, but anyway, so I can't remember what my point was before. Sorry. What were we talking about? I can't remember.
The leads.
Anyway. Oh yeah. Your business. So here's the thing. Another thing I discovered along the way was, holy cow, we have all this data now. We know what people are doing with the leads, right? And so if you were using our application for your clients, you could look in real time whether or not the salesperson answered the call, accepted the call from Speak2Leads. Number 1, because that's job 1, right? Answer the call during business hours. And number 2, making the call by pressing, in our case 2, because it's Speak2Leads, to call the lead. And then, okay, those are the first 2 important things, because nothing happens unless you do that. And then third, what is the connection rate on the first attempt? Is it 50%, 40, whatever? And then we have optimum reattempts, okay, based on, studies of millions of leads to determine, what results in the highest connection and conversion. So 20 minutes later, we call back. So did they answer that? So what you're looking at now is you're like saying, well, here's all the leads you got from me, the unique leads I sent you. And here's the effort you made. You only answered 50% of your calls. I mean, so guess what? You got 50% of the value of the service you're providing, right? You could have doubled their business if they had optimized the effort they should make to follow up on those leads. And that visibility's never been available to anyone ever. And to me, that's amazing, to have that visibility and sometimes it's not about, for lack of attitude or effort, it's about resources. Yeah. Okay. So guess what you learned here? You've got a resource versus opportunity, situation, and you've now got to weigh out that. And so is it worth expanding your resources? It looks like it would be. You can extrapolate what would happen is if you did call these leads, because based on the number of leads you speak to, what your conversion is, what your closing rate is. So just extrapolate that against the leads you don't speak to. Boom, there's your number. Now you can go out and decide, with all the logic and data you need to expand your resources. This is crazy stuff, that's never been available. And that's what Speak2Leads, what makes it exciting is it uncovers so many layers, of the onion, in addition to be a cool tool. Yeah.
100%. If you could have Speak2Leads, if you could have one thing for it right now, what would that be? Like if you could just go out and choose one thing to have for Speak2Leads, what would that be?
Just 1,000 customers. Really, that's all we need. We just need, we need the world to know, this exists, that it's available, and that, they should try it.
That's one of the things that I've noticed too, is with SaaS companies, right? Advertising for them for obviously some time now. A lot of the times is they have this really cool product, and a lot of the times we work with more, like cutting edge companies. So they have an innovative product, but the issue is that their audience doesn't necessarily know what it is that they provide, because they don't know that they have that issue rate, which is, it's kind of what it sounds like in this case, right? Like a lot of people don't think about, lead, what did you call it earlier? Lead response management, stuff like that, like response management, exactly. So if you don't think about that, then like it's kind of like, you don't know what you don't know kind of thing. So if you're stuck there,
that's right.
And a lot of the times it's part of education, and that's what we do as far as marketing goes for our clients, right? Like a lot of times it's actually educating masses, or it's really, the right audience on what that problem is, to then have people actually understand, okay, like I clearly have this issue, and this specific product can actually help me fix that.
Yeah. No, like I said, to do it all over again, marketing would be the primary point. Everything would have a marketing, go through a marketing lens, because success of the company, it doesn't matter. I'm sure there's a lot of brilliant products out there that are just collecting dust because somebody couldn't figure out how to market them. And this is one of those products that didn't catch fire virally or something. Supposedly that happens. Wow. That's amazing. Because man, we live in an era, because again, I've been through so many eras. All right. I was pre-tech. Okay. I was pre-internet. I was pre-computer. I was pre-everything. Okay. So I've seen it, like from a dinosaur's perspective. Okay. Right. and I've seen it evolve. And where we are now in that evolution is we're in a place that it's so affordable and easy to start a company and to start something with technology based, and to leverage technology, and to, and code and now we've got, access to labor, cheap labor all over the world. So you can go and get people that are really smart to help you write your code, and, for very little money. So the cost of starting up is so small. So now you've got so many products out there, and it must be blinding. To the buyer, to figure out, wow, whoa, what do I need? And whoa, so much coming at me every day. And so I think that must be part of it too. There's so much noise and just, I guess. And so people only, they buy, or they do, like, for example, I remember I was at a horse race in Del Mar, which is just up the street in San Diego. And I was talking to some guy, I was there with some media people, and they introduced me to some guy. He's a water delivery company in San Diego. So he's like, whoa, you mean that if we got because they sell business to business, water delivery to businesses, right? And these contracts, they're big contracts. So you mean if somebody inquired on our website about water delivery for their business, I could send the call to the guy in the truck that handles that neighborhood, and he could stop by in 2 minutes. He could call the guy and say, I'm right here. I'll see him in a few minutes. I'm like, yep. And he's like, whoa. And of course he jumped in and did it. And that's what he's doing today. How cool is that?
That's awesome.
Is he getting the business? Absolutely. People love that. It just makes sales so much fun when you combine it with delighting the customer. You combine a product with delight, and you own it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the
Mhm.
time here, so I'll just ask a couple more questions. Uh,
Sure.
what is, there's so many big, huge, very successful companies, right? What are the ones that you kind of look up to and say, like I want to do something like to the size that this company's doing it?
I mean, for me, size only matters to a point,
Mhm.
right? Which is to say that, enough that, okay, I can, let's be realistic, that I could exit at some point, and or have enough of a team that I don't have to work as hard, and be comfortable and be able to provide for my family, right?
Right.
Uh, Through retirement, and be able to retire at
Mhm.
some point. That's really, you know, a life eventually ends, right?
Totally. 100%.
So I would say how many, but my site is set on 1,000 customers, because we're doing, our average revenue per customer is about $800 a month,
Okay.
and our retention, our churn rate is like 0.3% per year,
Wow.
or three, so it's really almost zero. It's actually negative churn when you consider expansion revenue, right?
That's
To
good.
use Nathan's, terms, right?
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, and so we're in a position to do very, very well, and so now we are starting really a formal marketing program, through all the channels that one would assume we were using,
Mhm.
and we will be growing, and then we will also, we'll do direct sales, and account based selling and things like that, because there's so many companies that need our help out there,
Mhm.
and that don't know about us, and so on. We'll help them discover us, and
That's
and
awesome.
that's okay. Yeah. So I would say that, I mean, I think that the revenue right now, our revenue is, just, we're kind of, I think this year will probably be around 700,000, 750.
Nice.
Not much. Okay, because you know what, we were about there. We've been there for a long, long time.
It's time to take it to
But
the next level.
I should, to be fair, we had other services that we've now realigned. So now it's everything, like 90% of our revenue is strictly this product, right?
Awesome.
And so, that it's shifted. The revenue has shifted. So it has grown. There has been growth, but it just doesn't look like it, from a distance.
Right.
But so I'd say that would be, 1,000 customers would be beautiful. But I like the number. So that's what we're going for. Over the next, I think we can do it in 3 years.
Mhm. That's awesome. What is your favorite book?
Gee, man. Gosh, there. I say the book. There's so many books that have had obviously an influence. I've been reading like a madman, since I was in high school. Like books about business, and Think and Grow Rich. But, it was one of the first books I read when I was like 12.
Yeah.
I've always been an entrepreneur, right? Anyway, but I think Persuasion. Like.
Oh, that's so good.
It's that, yeah, that what's the guy's name, Cellini or whatever.
Robert, I'm actually
Yeah.
reading it right now.
Whew. It's probably because, again, it's practical. It's like not theory, it's what works, right?
Yeah.
I love that stuff. It's so cool. Yeah, so that's one I think comes to mind. It's very pragmatic, and but there's so many good books. I mean, it's hard to choose, but
Mhm.
you know and now I'm reading just, like a Harvard education, a library that's put together that basically gives you a Harvard education, but it by reading, abstracts, or excerpts from about 200 books over 1 year. If you read 15 minutes a day in 1 year, you have a Harvard education.
Nice. That's super
Yeah,
cool.
something like that. Sounds good anyway.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
Sammy, where can people find you online?
LinkedIn, and just Sammy James, and Speak2Leads. You find me, and there you go.
There you go. Awesome. And last question, do you have any questions for me?
Well, yeah. I mean, are you, by doing this podcast, which is a lot of work and a lot of time,
Mhm.
to do, not to do, then you have to edit. You have to. I mean, my God,
Right.
man, I know how much work there is. So to do this podcast, and oof, it's almost a full-time job.
Yeah.
So is it working for you? I mean, to introduce yourself to a new audience, is it helping you expand your exposure and introducing you to more clients and giving you more opportunities as a result? And
100%.
how long have you been doing
I think I'm actually coming up on the 1 year. This should be episode 57. So not like, no crazy number of episodes per week or anything like that. Recently, actually, I just started doing an episode about a day. So that like I have enough to go back, like if I stopped right now, I'd have enough to go back up until
Yeah.
like December 11th or something like that.
Yeah.
But overall, it's definitely worked. Definitely gives you exposure. It puts you in front of people that have, again, like people with big influence, right? So they share it and etc. So that's almost it has an exponential effect when it comes to actually getting in front of people, which is great. And overall, it's really, it's almost like a hobby because you enjoy doing it and
Sure.
you learn a ton of things from your people. So that's,
I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant. It is a huge commitment though. So
yeah, definitely. It definitely is.
but I admire what you're doing, and I think it's smart. So you're right. I mean, being able to listen to other people, because I've listened to some of your shows, and you learn a lot, by other people's perspective and their experience. Yeah, which is great because as an entrepreneur, it is a fairly isolated existence.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're not living in San Francisco. Because when I lived in San Francisco, man, I walk out the door, I met another entrepreneur. Okay,
Right.
it's like being in a convention all the time.
Yeah.
But in San Diego, not so much. You have to work at it.
Yeah, Phoenix too.
And frankly, people don't really care that much in San Diego. They're like, whatever. Life's, there's other things in life.
There's the beach.
Yeah, exactly. There's surfing. So what are you getting excited about?
That's awesome. Well, Sammy, thank you so much for being on here today. It was really a pleasure having you. And for anyone who's watching, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can listen to the podcast on pretty much any streaming platform, right? I was going to say Facebook, Instagram, but Spotify, iTunes, whatever it may be that you're listening on, it's probably there. So check it out. And again, thank you so much, Sammy, and we'll speak soon.
Yeah, thanks. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, talk soon.